Department 61 on the board. Please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, we're on the record. All right, we're gonna bring the jury. We're ready, right?
Yes, sir.
Teddy's right behind you. He was anyway.
You need any appearances, Sean?
Oh, we'll do it once they,
Okay.
we'll get everybody's opinions. We can go on the record.
We are on the record.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and set forth our appearances. We'll start first with the plaintiffs, then we'll move to the defense.
Your Honor, Will Kemp for plaintiff.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Teddy Parker, plaintiff.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Robert Egler, plaintiff.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Maggie DiFederico for plaintiff.
Good afternoon, Brianna Switzler and Eric Pepperman on behalf of plaintiffs.
Brad Johnson, Eric Freeman, on behalf of the defendants, Mr. Watson, Mr. Esposito here as well, but they're going on other matters.
And we're just bringing the jury, and I guess we can continue in.
Yes, sir.
All rise for the jury.
All right, do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed your lunch. I did. All right, and it's my understanding we're going to continue on with plaintiff's case in chief. And Ms. King, is that correct, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Lisa. So when we left off, we had just talked about your flare-up and hospitalization for IVG in June 2019. And then we had also talked about your flare-up in August and your hospitalization and IVIG treatment in August. Is that right?
Yes.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, I meant to ask you earlier, is that how long, for example, when you have your IVIG treatments, how long is that procedure? You say it's through an IV, and I presume you're sitting in a room, in a chair, I presume, or bed, I guess. How long does a round of treatment last for?
So, are you saying at the hospital?
Well, yeah, let's
Okay.
start with the hospital, yeah.
So when I'm at the hospital, it varies. The infusion time varies, and as many times as I ask them to infuse it slowly so I don't get a headache, it could be 4, 5, 6 hours depending on the speed of the infusion.
Okay. And then that's for 3 and sometimes 4 days.
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. So it's now post-August 2019. What symptoms did you have next?
So I was still having all the same symptoms pertaining to, the throat swelling, my legs not working, my speech slurring, weakness throughout my body. So I'm doing physical therapy and I'm doing speech therapy to kind of gain my strength. And then, that continues. But I would say, if you kind of fast forward a little bit, I go into 2020 later on in the summer months, I'm noticing my bloating still hasn't subsided. I've still got fatigue. I've got joint pain all over. And so now I'm going back, trying to revisit that to see why.
Court's indulgence, one moment, Your Honor. Sorry, Your Honor. I guess I could tell you, I left my phone in the bathroom and I just ready to go get it for me. Now, in August 2020, did you start having, or were you still having abdominal pain, bloating, bladder, pressure, itching, things like that?
Yeah, so again, I was having the bloating and everything, and I started getting itchiness, and so I had gone to the doctor to see what any of these things were. Because
And who did you go to?
I believe I went to Dr. Zimmerman, my gastroenterologist.
Okay. And what did he do for you when you went there? Did he do more blood work?
He did.
And what was the results of those blood work?
My liver enzymes are still elevated.
And did you follow up with Dr. Zimmerman after your results came back on your blood work?
I did, and at that point, he had talked about doing a liver biopsy.
Did you order one or just talk about it at that time?
Now, he had ordered it. We had actually talked about it the year prior, and it was a discussion point because I had everything going on with myasthenia and my throat was closing and whatnot, they just kind of felt like that was probably, an added stress to my body. So yes, at this point, he had ordered a liver biopsy.
So can you tell us what it was like to undergo a liver biopsy?
So there's the unknown of a liver biopsy, but I also had to go back to my neurologist, Dr. Mahajan, and I was always keeping them in the loop as far as what was going on. And, I had told him that they wanted to do a liver biopsy, any issues with that, and he was absolutely adamant, and this is probably maybe August 2020, that I go to a hospital to get the liver biopsy done. He had said, if anything goes awry, I want you at a hospital, just because you've got so many things going on with you neurologically. And so trying to get an appointment with the hospital was more difficult than not because of COVID. So we ended up deciding to go to Steinberg Diagnostic, which had an interventional radiology suite, because you want to make sure I had IV access in case anything goes wrong or they have to transport me somewhere. There's a line there. So I needed to go to a place that there was an RN. And when I had gone to other locations for MRIs with IV access, they couldn't get my vein. So we chose there. We kind of had a whole plan, and again, there was a fear that something could cause an exacerbation with my myasthenia gravis. And so then when I went there, they finally got it in my hand, and then we went back to where they do the biopsy, and it's through fluoroscopy, meaning there's just a big machine that's making sure that they can guide this needle.
Live X-ray, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like when we were young and they have them on the Roadrunner, live X-rays.
Exactly.
They actually have that, right?
There was no Roadrunner. But there was a really big needle. So I remember the big needle, and I remember the doctor saying, okay, I just need you to stay really, really still. And I'm like, okay. And, there's no anesthesia or anything. And you just kind of stay where the X-ray can see that your liver is. And then, right before they do it, they're like, okay, we really, really need you to stay still because, we want to make sure we get the biopsy the first time, because if not, we're going to have to go in again and again until they get it. And I'm like, trust me, I'm going to stay really, really still. They were like, and then if for any reason this, we're going to need you to stay still afterwards because we want to make sure that you don't bleed out. So again, it's a mental game at this point. There's a biopsy part of it, and then there's a whole mental fear of what could go wrong. Am I going to have to go to the hospital? Am I going to have to do this biopsy over again? So yeah, the biopsy itself kind of feels like a really big, call it the killer wasp. You feel it, fortunately they got it the first time, so I didn't have to really repeat the process.
Were you worried about the results afterwards?
Yes, because again, we had been discussing a biopsy for over a year at this point, and my gastroenterologist was just like, I have no idea what's going on with you. So yes, I was concerned.
So you, sometime after that, were you referred to Loma Linda Hospital to see Dr. Gish?
Yes. So Dr. Zimmerman, my gastroenterologist, said, I need you to see a hepatologist. And he referred me to Loma Linda Liver Failure Clinic. And Dr. Gish was the doctor. He said he's just really, really smart. And, he's going to be able to figure out what's going on with your liver.
And what did Dr. Gish eventually diagnose you with, if anything, after reviewing all your test and biopsy?
He actually took my slides and apparently put them in front of a liver board. And so there's a bunch of doctors in there. And so they diagnosed me with autoimmune hepatitis.
Your records indicate that was in October 2020.
Correct.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. So from March 2018 to October 2020, you went undiagnosed regarding your autoimmune hepatitis?
Yes.
To your knowledge, is there a cure for autoimmune hepatitis?
Based on what my doctors have said, no.
So at this point, you've been diagnosed now with 2 incurable diseases. How did you react to that?
It's a lot to take in. Going through the process, I just kept waiting to get better. So I get the news on myasthenia, and then you get the news on autoimmune hepatitis. And, that is not something I know a whole heck of a lot about. So, again, you kind of go down this rabbit hole with a lot of fear of the unknown, I guess.
And it's not only 2 different incurable diseases, but it's 2 different incurable diseases that are affecting your immune system.
Yes.
Did Dr. Gersh give you any medication to treat your autoimmune hepatitis?
He did. He gave me a medication called Ursodil.
Short version is Urso?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, earlier we were talking about your myasthenia gravis flare-ups. Have you had any others since you were hospitalized in August 2019?
I did. The next one that was Thanksgiving week, so November 2022.
And was that a particularly severe one?
Yeah, it was really bad, actually. I started feeling like my throat was closing, was my first symptom. And I'd reached out to my doctors. They had told me to go ahead and start on some prednisone, and I did. And I went for about a day and a half, and prednisone wasn't working, Benadryl wasn't working, nothing was working. I just kept feeling constriction, like my throat was tightening, and weakness all over my body. And I reached out to Dr. Mahajan, and he said, it's going to take too long for us to get IVIG authorized. We're going to have to admit you. And I was like, absolutely not. It's Thanksgiving. I have a non-refundable cabin. I haven't gone anywhere with my family in forever. And, I was like, I'm going to Utah this weekend. And he said, Lisa, the last place you need to be is on top of a mountain with no healthcare in sight. I just at least need you to go to the hospital and get checked out. Make sure that, maybe you're good. Maybe you're not.
Did you go to the hospital?
I did.
What happened?
So it was a Tuesday, and we were all supposed to leave that Tuesday evening. And I had family coming from Arizona. My kids were going, so we were all kind of meeting in the middle. So I go in Tuesday afternoon to the hospital, and the doctor that sees me comes out. They do a series of tests, and they said, we will be admitting you for 4 days of IVIG. And now this is Tuesday, and Thursday's Thanksgiving, and I'm you might as well have told me at that point that I was being arrested. Like, I am really, like, I'm doing everything I can. I'm trying to talk my way out of it. And they're like, absolutely not. You're having an exacerbation. So
you were in the hospital for 4 days,
I was.
and you had 4 rounds of IVIG treatment this time?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell us what that was like, spending Thanksgiving in the hospital, getting IVIG treatments that are, I think you said 4 to 6 hours or 5 to 6 hours for each one?
So
Away from your family?
I call my family and I tell them that I'm being admitted. So of course my family does what probably any family does and says, we're coming down, we're going to be there. And they did all come to the hospital, and I was like, we haven't done anything in quite some time, and this is non-refundable. You guys are going, and everybody was like, no, we're not going. We're going to be here with you. And I was like, I forbid you. Like, I absolutely forbid you. I am, there's so much guilt going through your mind. You're just like, I've destroyed another holiday, and no, you guys are going. So I fought with them, and Brent had said, okay, I'm sending the kids. I'm staying here with you. And I said, I swear, if you don't go and give those kids the best Thanksgiving they've ever had, we're going to have issues. And I'm like, you have to go. And I'm like, I'll be here getting IVIG. And, it's just it. This is what's happening. And I'm like, send me pictures of you guys enjoying your best life. And, we're going to go from there. So to your question, what it was like, I can tell you the pressed turkey on Thanksgiving in a hospital is absolutely atrocious. And getting IVIG was, it was tedious. It was horrible. And I was weaker than I had ever been. I was really weak in the chest. I was weak in the throat. I was weak in my legs. So yeah, it was a whole process.
I think it's become clear to all of us why what Brent said, you were a very strong woman. It's okay, I'm married to one who's my partner, and the kids say she's the boss at home and at work, and they're right. Did your MG, your myasthenia gravis, improve after this hospitalization?
It did not. Again, with IVIG, sometimes it's a couple days, sometimes it's a few months. And this is one of those times where it was actually a few months. I felt really weak, which I anticipated, but my legs were not working at all. I was back to not driving again. I felt really weak, not just in my throat, but in my chest, more so than I think I had ever felt. So after I got out of the hospital, I think the following week, I went back to my primary care doctor, and I'm like, something's wrong. Something's more wrong than it's usually wrong, so I don't know what to do. So we started adding, doing a lot of tests, and I remember he came in and he had, because I had already done prednisone, and he had said, we're going to have to give you an injection of solumedrol. I'm like, more prednisone? Like, how much prednisone can a person take? And he was just like, I'm very concerned with your breathing. Like, you're not breathing well. And so he's like, this should help kind of strengthen things. And so I had to get the solumedrol. And again, my legs didn't work well. Probably, this was November, probably till January. I didn't get my legs back.
Did you have more IVIG treatment after that?
I did. I followed up with my neurologist and
Dr. Mahajan?
Dr. Mahajan. And at that point, he had said, we need to start on monthly IVIG treatments.
Did you get monthly IVI treatments? Did you get IVI treatments monthly?
I did. I did in February, March, April, and I think November that year.
Okay. Did you have to go to the hospital each time for these IVIG therapy treatments?
No, I actually went to an outpatient infusion center at Dr. Mahajan's office, where they just kind of do it from a recliner.
And how many rounds of IVIG treatment do you get when you each time at Dr. Mahajan's office?
So what he had ordered originally was 2 rounds, 2 days basically back to back. And so in February, I did back to back, and the first time they were able, because I got out of the hospital about a month and a half, well, I don't know, 2 months beforehand, but they were able to find a vein on the side of my hand. And so the first IV was okay. The second day when I showed up, this one wasn't working anymore, and they couldn't find anywhere to start it. They're trying everywhere, and they were able to finally find something that worked. But you know, I had things all over me, and so I'd asked the nurse, I said, is there any way, you know, again, can you send me home with this? And she was like, no, we can't. And I said, is there any other option I have? And she said, yeah, we can talk to Dr. Mahaj and see if we could do 2 rounds of IVIG instead of doing it 2 days, just in one really long day. And so that's what we did for March, and that's what we did for April.
Okay, and how long does that take? I presume it's a pretty long time.
It is, because you're putting 2 days into one, so it's an all-day process, and it just depends on your infusion time. Because again, they can speed it up, but if they do, I get migraines. So it's just kind of a catch-22.
Now, you mentioned that you had monthly treatments after Dr. Mahajan had recommended, and you had one in February, one in March, one in April, but you didn't have another one until November. Why did you stop going for monthly IVI treatments with Dr. Mahajan after just 3 months?
Your Honor, we could, counsel, help with the foundation, make sure what year we're talking about.
This is 2023.
2020. Thank you.
I believe, well, based on, you know, when Dr. Mahajan was asked that question, it was basically because the insurance hadn't authorized the IVF.
Objections, collateral source.
Your Honor, they've opened the door on this.
And gentlemen, thank you.
Is the objection overruled, Your Honor? Thank you. All right, so question I had asked you was, why did you stop going for monthly IVI treatments with Dr. Mahajan after only 3 consecutive months of treatment?
The insurance would not authorize it, and I couldn't afford the treatments, which is quite pricey at $372,000 a year.
Is that the cost for the hospital or for Dr. Mahajan?
The cost of the hospital, because I was just in the hospital last month, that for 3 days runs $200,000. So that cost of $370,000.
Just one time, not every month, right?
One hospital stay, 3 days, runs $200,000. So to do the outpatient center for a year of IVIG runs $372,000 a year.
You touched on how many different doctors you saw over several years before you were able to get diagnoses. Was that difficult to be in the dark as to what was going on with you and your health for so long?
Absolutely. You know, I had gone from provider to provider, asking questions, presenting symptoms. You know, generally what I would hear is, you look fine, which was never my question. I was like, I've got tremors, my throat's closing, my legs are not working. You know, please do some tests, figure out what's wrong. This isn't normal. This isn't right. So yeah, it was very, very frustrating.
Okay. And was it difficult for you because you couldn't get any answers about what was wrong with you?
Yeah, I was pretty much left to kind of deal with my symptoms to the best of my ability. But I didn't know what was wrong with me. You know, I can make assumptions, but, you know, there's not a single person, you know, that was able to really kind of tell me what was wrong and help me find a solution or something that would lessen the symptoms.
So Lisa, at what point did you realize that real water could be the cause of your illnesses?
I would say it was right around probably May 2021. I actually had saw something on the news. I believe it was the Southern Nevada Health District or CDC or something like that, that was talking about people who had liver issues and to please notify them if you had liver issues and you drank real water.
And did you ever contact the FDA or Southern Nevada Health Department about your symptoms?
I did. They had instructed everybody to kind of go on their website, fill out a form, and they said that they would contact you.
Did anyone from the Southern Nevada Health Department reach out to you after you filled out that survey?
They did. There was an investigator who reached out to me, kind of went through some questions, asked me, just typical how much I drank, what was wrong with me medically, etc.
Okay. What happened after that?
They actually closed my claim because my symptoms was before the amount of, was earlier than the time that they were trying to do a case, that there was a...
The period they were investigating.
Yes, that was exactly. There was a certain time frame that they were investigating, but mine was before that, so they just closed the case.
Did they tell you they were only investigating for a period during 2000, patients who got symptoms for a period after drinking water for a period, some period in 2020?
Yeah, 2020 was kind of the area, the time frame that they were investigating at the time.
And I think you said earlier your first symptoms started in March of 2018.
Correct.
Did you keep going to Loma Linda after your first appointment with Dr. Gish?
Yes, I saw Dr. Gish for a couple of appointments, and then he had indicated that he wanted me to follow up with his nurse practitioner on a routine basis every 3 months, and he would want me to get labs done before each of my visits.
And the nurse practitioner he's having you see is actually here in the Las Vegas campus for Loma Linda, is that right?
Yes, that was Cassandra Oscar.
There's been a lot of discussion about your travel over the past, well, I guess since we started opening statements. First, did you travel often before you got sick?
Yes, I travel pretty routinely for work as well as with the family for fun.
Has your travel decreased since you've gotten sick?
Absolutely. Significantly for both.
For both?
Yes.
Okay. Do you travel much at all for work?
I don't. They actually have put a lot of accommodations in place. I think when I first started getting sick, or before I even was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, I tried to go to a meeting in Atlanta where my corporate office was, and I made it through one day. Then I felt my throat tightening, and I had to go back to my hotel room and just stay there. Every other meeting I did by phone, and that's when my boss had said, you know what, you can do your meetings by Teams, I think it was, back in those days. And since then, unless I really, really have to travel, I don't have to be on the road. I can do most everything. They do accommodate me.
So in his opening statement, counsel for Real Water mentioned several locations you have traveled to. When did you last go to Puerto Rico?
I believe that was November 2018.
What about Budapest in Germany?
That was over New Year, so December 2018 into the first couple days of January 2019.
When did you travel to Hawaii?
I've been there a few times, I believe 2019, 2020, and 2022.
Okay. Was it twice in 2020 as opposed to 2022?
I'm going off of memory. I do believe it was once in 2020 and then 2022.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Have you ever been to China?
No, never.
Okay.
Actually, they asked me that during my deposition. They had apparently saw a post that Brent had made that said that he was working in China, and there was an assumption that I had gone to China with him, but I had never traveled with him.
Have you traveled outside the country since you were diagnosed with myasthenia gravis?
I have not. I try to be very careful on where I do go. My biggest concern is going to a place where I don't know what healthcare is available to me, because I've got something that's kind of time sensitive. If my body starts failing me, I need treatment. So for that reason, I choose my travels wisely, I guess.
Have you been able to take any trips with your family?
I have. We've taken some trips here and there.
Okay. Were you participating in a lot of activities on these trips since you've been sick with your family, or were they more relaxed as far as your activity level?
Definitely more relaxed. If I do go to Hawaii, Brent works there a lot. So, that's just literally sitting on the beach doing absolutely nothing. And if we go with the family, it usually has something to do with animals. My kids love animals just about as much as we do. So we'll go visit something and, feel like we've done something as a family.
Okay, thank you. Have you been able to continue commentating and hosting events since you've gotten sick?
So I believe the last fight card that I have worked has been November 2019. That was California Fight League that I routinely commentated for, and my daughter and her boyfriend actually, it's in Victorville, California, so there's no easy way to fly there. You kind of got to drive there, and so I didn't want to trust my legs would go out on me, so they drove me there, and I had told the promoter that I, had not been feeling up to par, and so they had told me that they would limit the amount of talking, but they're very supportive of me. So again, they made some accommodations.
So as pretty much the case that you're not really able to commentate anymore.
I have to kind of really gauge how I'm feeling, and of course, I don't ever know what my body's going to do. So I mean, it's a risk. There was another event, I think, in December 2019, where it was a nonprofit, and they were honoring timeless women who were kind of empowering others. And so they asked me if I'd come in and kind of make ambient announcements over a 2-hour period. So I was able to do that.
Was that for the American Lung Association?
No, it was just a local artist here in town.
Okay. But that wasn't commentating a fight, right?
No.
Okay. Have you done any other hosting of events since 2019?
So I had that one, like I said, where the artist kind of had a little art show. And then I believe in 2020, I did a commercial for the American Lung Association promoting one of their events.
Is that 2020 or 2021?
I think I did it in 2020. But then in 2021, during COVID, they were kind of doing this on-air thing. So I did a promo video for them, for the American Lung Association as well. I'd love to volunteer with them. And then...
Did you host the red carpet for the Boxing Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 2022?
I did. I've been working with them since probably 2014, 2015. And so I usually do their red carpet events. I was actually supposed to do it in August 2019, but I was in the hospital. So I hadn't done it up until 2022 again. And so I hosted those interviews. And then in 2024, they had asked me back, and I did their red carpet interviews, and then I emceed the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame induction ceremony alongside someone else. I was very concerned something was going to happen. So I was just like, can we have a backup? Is there anybody else I can work with just in case this doesn't work well? And so that's kind of how I got through it.
I didn't really hear you say you've done any commentating since 2019 though, right?
I have not. I did November 2019, but I also had another show that I was supposed to do, I think September 2019, again for California Fight League, and I had to call them and tell them I wasn't feeling well. And then I've been asked to do other events, but I've had to kind of turn it down if I'm not feeling up to it, meaning my body's not working, my legs are not working, or I feel, my throat is tightening. So I have to pick and choose.
How does the amount of commentating, or really in this case hosting, gigs you do now compared to before you got sick on an annual basis?
So I would say, on an average, probably between 2014 to 2019, I was doing about 8 to 10, freelance gigs each year. And I would say as soon as I started getting sick and in and out of the hospital and, not trusting how my body was feeling, on average, since then, I've probably done maybe one event a year. I think there's some years I haven't done anything, and other events I've maybe done one or two different things. So on average, maybe once a year.
So is it fair to say that you've had to significantly decrease, pretty much eliminate commentating and decrease the hosting appearances due to your health problems?
Yes,
Has that been hard for you?
absolutely. Especially in the fight community or any community that you're attached to, if it's, we call it our fight family. So if I'm used to working the fights with the athletic commission and different judges and whatnot, like it's just a family. We've known each other for forever. It's a good time to go and catch up in between fights, take photos, and it's hard work, but it's a lot of fun at the same time. So because I can't do it, it really just, you kind of isolate yourself because that is everybody's social scene. It's not like they're getting together and going to lunches and stuff because everybody's really busy trying to do these fights all the time. So yes, it definitely, it takes its toll.
Lisa, do you still ever train or work out?
I do from time to time. And again, I base it on how my body feels. As a matter of fact, every doctor I go to is like, hey, make sure you're working out. For me, I can't go in and spar. It's more of I do like a cardio kickboxing class or something like that. So, and if I'm feeling weak, I don't go. For me, I haven't been to one of those classes in many months at this point, just because I've had so much weakness. I was just hospitalized last month.
Lisa, have you been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a result of the liver injury, myasthenia gravis, and autoimmune hepatitis illnesses you suffered from consuming hydrogen in real water by one of your treating physicians?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that Real Water has agreed and stipulated that you have been diagnosed with PTSD and that you are currently suffering from PTSD? So
yes.
Okay. Have you seen a psychologist for your PTSD yet?
So the doctor that diagnosed me is Dr. Sands, and I saw
Dr.
him.
Hirschfeld also.
Oh, Dr. Hirschfeld, yes, that was last year. And then Dr. Sands had given me the, he also had indicated the same thing. And so I had, I saw last November-ish. And so right about the time that he had said it as well, it was right after Thanksgiving-ish. And so between that and Christmas and then me falling apart kind of in January, I still haven't gotten that far as making an appointment, but it is a plan.
Is there also is it difficulty to find mental health providers in Las Vegas?
It is. So I've worked in hospitals and skilled nursing facilities, which we're always looking for psychologists around on the patients. And I do know that there's a shortage in Las Vegas. And so, I did put some feelers out for some of the people that I have worked with that also work in behavioral health. And, in my mind, if I don't find anybody here in town, then I will go further until someone can give me a provider that comes highly recommended.
You brought up Dr. Sands. We heard from Dr. Sands earlier in his trial, and he has recommended that you undergo psychological evaluation and neuropsychological evaluation as well as treatment for your PTSD in the future. Do you plan to do that?
Yes.
Okay. You think you're ready for it at this point?
I definitely think with everything that's going on right now, I'll probably wholeheartedly need it.
Okay. When was your last, when was your most recent, I should say, MG, myasthenia gravis flare-up or
Right around-
exacerbation?
Yeah, that was right around a month ago. So I was in the hospital. Again, I was admitted on Valentine's Day. And so I was in the hospital Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. Can you tell us about that? What led to that? What happened?
So, so I was starting to feel weakness in my legs, and I was feeling tightness in my throat. And, but I had extreme weakness in my neck. Again, kind of in a way that I hadn't felt before. So I actually went to my pain management doctor and I had said, you know, is there something going on with my neck? Like, I don't know what's going on. It's just super, super heavy. And he actually did an evaluation and he's like, it's not something pain management-ish. And he said, you know, I'm concerned it's myasthenia gravis. You know, so I would recommend that you reach out to your neurologist. So I reached out to Dr. Mahajan, and it's kind of a very similar conversation. Dr. Mahajan, I'm really weak, this, that, and whatever. And he had said, well, you know, we can put in for authorization for IVIG, but it's going to take a little bit of time. If you're not feeling, you know, solid, we need to admit you to the hospital. And I absolutely did not want to go to the hospital. So I just said, he's like, you know, I recommend you start on some mestinon, which is pyridistamine, and take that 3 times a day, see if that helps. So I pretty much lay down for 3 days and I'm not doing anything, just trying to give my body time to rest and get stronger. And I'm still feeling really weak. And again, I'm concerned because it's my whole neck and I feel it in my throat. My legs are really heavy. So I go to my primary care doctor and I had, you know, explained my symptoms. He does some physical exam and some tests checking my strength. And he's like, I'm not liking this at all. And he said, you know, I'm going to reach out to Dr. Mahajan and talk to him. And he came back and he said, we have agreed that you need to be admitted. I'm going to call over to the hospital. I want you to go there right now. So I was admitted.
That's Centennial Hills.
That was at Centennial Hills Hospital.
And so were you admitted to Centennial Hills on Valentine's Day?
I was.
Okay. And did they give you IVIG treatments?
They did.
How many?
They gave me 3 rounds. There was actually a shortage of beds due to respiratory, so they actually had to start me in the emergency room.
What causes, from your perspective, your myasthenia flare-ups or exacerbations?
No one can really say, but in my opinion, I feel like it's stress or when I'm kind of overdoing it at work. Just if I get run down or if I'm overdoing it, I guess you can say, that's generally when I tend to see that it gets worse.
How did you feel after getting this last, or well, let me say, how did you feel after getting this last IVIG treatment?
So again, IVIG makes you really weak. It's just natural with the good cells and the bad cells. So I felt weak. I felt like my legs were just kind of like the Tin Man. I was just like, I've got some straight legs going. They're not bending. They're very, very heavy. But I guess the worst part was my neck and the weakness in my neck, just holding up my head. My head felt like it weighed 1,000,000 pounds. So again, Dr. Mahajan has kept me on mestinon, pyridistamine, 3 times a day since my hospitalization. So still kind of waiting for that to pass.
Now, this is one of the times, though, that you got better a little faster than normal. It wasn't weeks or months. In this case, it was days.
Yeah, so there's no rhyme or reason. I can't figure it out as to why sometimes I get better quicker or not. But again, my legs were stiff, but they were still able to walk. Sometimes they can't walk. So yes, I was able within, a few days, feeling like, okay, this one worked. This one's putting me back on the right track. And then with the methadone, I'm able to kind of function through my day.
Did you see, after these IVIG treatments, did you see Dr. Mahajan for a follow-up visit?
Yes, it's pretty routine that you've got to follow up with your doctor. They told me to follow up with my neurologist as soon as I got out of the hospital, so I did.
During that follow-up with Dr. Mahajan, what did you learn?
He was concerned with the how extreme of a flare-up I had, and the weakness that was all over my body, as well as my throat. He's always concerned that I'm going to have difficulty breathing and my throat's going to close. And so we kind of discussed treatment plans. And at that point, he had indicated that I was going to need to do IVIG on a monthly basis.
And how many rounds?
So what he has recommended is 2 rounds back to back, 2 days in a row in an outpatient setting.
Okay. And did Dr. Mahajan tell you how long you were going to have these 2 rounds monthly of IVIG treatment?
Yeah, he had explained that this is kind of my new normal and that I'm going to need this for life. This is my new treatment plan.
Will you still do 2 rounds of IVI treatment in 1 day every month, or will it be 2 days?
So he had explained that he wants to do 2 days back to back, that with the hopes that that eliminates the really bad migraine headaches that I get.
How are they going to deal with your hard sticks? They're going to be doing 2 days in a row.
So what they're planning to do is schedule me for Portacath. So that'll give me IV access.
Okay. And how does that make you feel? Is this something that has to be surgically implanted?
It does. I guess it's scary, it's stressful. Not excited about it at all. It's not like where they put it in and it's one and done. So after they insert it, I guess you have to be very careful. Can't do anything strenuous. So I don't really know how that's going to work out with anything working out. But you also have to replace it, I guess, from what I'm told, every 5 years. And of course, because it's a central line that goes into your body, you have to be very careful of just keeping it clean and making sure that there's no infection, because it can go, I believe, straight to the heart or something like that. So,
how do you feel about something like this being permanently placed every 5 years, permanently placed on breast?
well, getting this done once seems horrible. Getting it done multiple times, that not on my wish list of things to get done. I also don't love the placement, because if I do anything, any announcing or whatnot, I'm going to be extremely limited on what I'm going to have to wear. That's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing I've ever seen. So, you're just going to be yelling, hey, I got something wrong with me. So, no, nothing about this pleases me.
Are you concerned about the way it may affect your attractiveness to women?
I think it's more of a attractiveness to me. That's not pleasant. And there's so many concerns. I haven't even got to the point of processing all of the fears that are going to go into this and how this is going to be life altering.
How do you feel wonder, Jerry, how you feel when you think about having to get IVIG treatments every month for the rest of your life.
It's a lot. Again, that means I'm gonna commit to having a flu at least once a month. It's unpredictable. I don't know if I'm gonna be sick for a few days or weeks or months. So there's that aspect of it. It's also the infusion times are long. I don't know how I'm going to do this with my work. I got it in 2023 and we kind of got through that, but I have to revise how I'm going to get it done with my work. And then on top of that, there's a lot that goes into IVIG. Again, it's not necessarily medication, it's a blood product. The thought of getting one blood transfusion would have freaked me out years ago. But to get IVIG, you've got to have about 8,000 donors to make one dose.
Let's hold up on that, because what I really want to ask you about is when you go for your IVIG treatments at the outpatient center that Dr. Mahajan uses for this, are there other myasthenia gravis patients there getting IVI treatment as well?
Yes. So I've been dealing with this since 2019, but I'm kind of the newer case every time I've been there. And so I'm sitting in an infusion room with other patients getting IVIG as well. And they've had it longer than I have. So everybody in there comes in with a walker or a wheelchair. They're generally saying to me, how are you walking?
Your Honor, here, sir.
What is your impression of what
How's this name?
what is your impression about what their reaction is to you?
I feel.
Without telling what you're saying.
Okay, so since I'm able, to at least scoot in and out if my legs aren't working, it's different than how they are. So there's a lot of questions surrounding, my diagnosis, my treatment, and as far as me, I'm wondering how long did it take them to get to the point where they're now in a walker and a wheelchair, because that just does not want to be something I want to be.
You feel that unfortunately that's likely your future.
I mean,
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
It's speculation. There are other patients there who's had it longer than her who has that exact problem, Your Honor.
That's also speculation, Your Honor.
No, it's not speculation.
We're talking about her concern.
She late, yeah, that's right.
How old?
Can you ask the question again?
Sure. How does it make you feel knowing that myasthenia gravis is a progressive disease? You're only going to get worse, as Dr. Mahajan has testified to.
It's scary.
Well, let me finish. How
Okay.
does it feel knowing that and seeing these other patients who've had it longer and at least having somewhat of a thought that will likely be your future?
It's scary. The outlook looks grim when I see others, in a similar situation with a less ambulatory way of life.
Nevertheless, are you still willing to do and plan to do the monthly IVIG treatments that Dr. Mahajan has recommended?
Yes, we've discussed it at length, and he feels, by me being proactive and doing it monthly, hopefully, this will prevent me from having to go back to the hospital with a flare-up and being admitted, allowing my symptoms to get worse.
Now, what is your biggest concern? I think you started to talk about this, but what is your biggest concern when it comes to IVIG therapy?
So again, IVIG it's a blood product. There's a lot of donors in order to make a dose. I have to be, I work in healthcare, and, errors happen every day in every business. And just from a numbers perspective, having 8,000 donors means that there's 8,000 somebodies, making sure that they're screened to make sure that there's no diseases or antibodies or, something I don't want in the blood that is now going into my body. I have zero control as to what goes into my body at this point. And I don't want to get anything else as a result of me getting my treatment. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be undetected. I'm sure, if something came through like HIV and hepatitis B, I hope they catch it. But again, to err is human. But if there's any other disease that comes up that's maybe just, mildly there, someone has a mild disease, I don't know. This is not my area of expertise, but does that get passed on to me? And is there going to be something else that I have to deal with in addition to myasthenia gravis and autoimmune hepatitis?
And this is 8,000 different donors for the preparation of one round of IVIG, is that
That's
your
correct.
understanding? Okay. So, I mean, how do you do this? Do you talk to someone about it, or how do you deal with this mentally?
So I'm kind of one that just internalizes this. I don't want to be fear-mongering, and I don't want to burden people with my problems. So it's kind of hard to find someone to relate to, I've got 8,000 donors and I'm kind of freaked out about it. So I guess I internalize it. I mean, it's just, I can go into a group setting such as the outpatient center and strike up a conversation with everybody else, but I also don't want to freak them out. I don't know how much they've thought of, and I'm not going to do that to other patients as well. So yeah, I'm trying to work on that.
Has it affected you mentally and emotionally?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
I
know you don't want to talk about this stuff.
I don't.
You made that clear to me, but I'm going to push you on it, okay?
I mean, that mental aspect of, is your question about IVIG or just everything in general?
The IVIG treatment.
So again, if I were to get one blood transfusion, I would traditionally be freaked out. Getting multiple rounds of IVIG a month, that means there's 16,000 donors that is going into my body. And over a lifetime, I'm just trying not to do that math because that's a lot of donors. And so, I've got a choice. I could either not do it and potentially end up in the hospital. With myasthenia gravis, again, my biggest concern is my throat closing, because if that is to happen, then I end up on a vent. Again, I work in healthcare. I work in hospitals and skilled nursing facilities, and I know once you go on a vent, it's very hard to get a patient off. They do, sometimes they come off, but that's just not a road I want to go down. So if I would like to eliminate this, I am kind of forced to do, IVIG, because there's really no other treatment out there that will work for me.
You think about this a lot?
I think about it all the time.
Do you still experience symptoms from your autoimmune hepatitis?
I do.
Tell us about those.
Fatigue, joint pain, bloating, abdominal pain. Those are.
Do you still take Urso to manage it?
I do.
Are you getting blood work done regularly?
I am.
Okay. Is that quarterly?
Yes.
And is that to monitor your enzyme levels?
Yes.
Okay. What frequency? Now, your enzyme levels have come down, I think, starting in late 2020, right?
I don't recall offhand. I feel like it was still in 2020 or 2021. I don't recall offhand.
If it was late 20 was the last time they were, significantly elevated with that. If that was in the record, would you disagree with that?
I would not disagree with that.
What frequency of follow-up visits do you have with the Loma Linda for your autoimmune hepatitis?
So it's been, I believe, every 3 months up until sometime in 2024, where it kind of went to every 6 months.
We heard from Dr. Hudson, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, and he recommended that you have follow-up appointments quarterly. Do you plan to do that?
Yes.
So, to be honest with you, Lisa, you look pretty good over the past 3 weeks. And sitting here today, other than I understand this is difficult for you, but you still look pretty good.
Thank you.
You have an explanation for that?
So again, I just got out of the hospital. I was in the hospital February 14th, 15th, 16th. So I've already done IVIG, and this time I bounced back a little bit easier than some other times. So I think that has been very helpful for me. In addition to that, I'm on pyridostigmine 3 times a day for my symptoms and the weakness of my body.
Since it was 2 rounds instead of 3 rounds, does the IVIG therapy help or last longer when it's 3 or 4 rounds versus just 2 rounds?
Yes, apparently, well, I did 3 rounds this last time I was hospitalized, and that kind of helps keep you more stable for a longer period of time, is at least how it's been explained for me.
Okay. But do your symptoms always come back?
No, it's very unpredictable.
No,
My symptoms of myasthenia gravis always come back. When they come back is completely unpredictable.
I know you don't want to answer this, but can you tell us how this has been emotionally for you, all of this?
Well, depends. It depends on the subject. So for me, I would say if you're dealing with the autoimmune hepatitis process, that has its own set of emotions. No one can tell me if I'm going to relapse and kind of go down that roller coaster that I've been on, which is scary. And, you know, if it gets worse, there's a possibility of me having to do a liver transplant. And if I have to do a liver transplant, it significantly reduces your life expectancy. So you have to kind of deal with that emotional aspect. When you're talking about myasthenia gravis, that is also scary. As I had mentioned, the treatments are scary. The unpredictability of what symptoms I'm going to have, whether it's slurring of my speech or my legs not working, is one thing. It's another thing knowing that at any given time my throat can close. And like I had mentioned, I've worked around it. I've seen it. Going on a ventilator is very, very scary. And that's kind of one of those things that if my throat closes, that I will have to go on. Can't power through it, can't, wish it away. If that happens, it happens. That's what's going to have to happen to me. And, it's scary. As far as the slurred speech and my legs, in theory, that's not as scary as a vent. But every single day when I book presentations or things of that nature, I don't know if I'm gonna start slurring my words. And I absolutely cannot give a presentation when I say you can't, the vocal cords get paralyzed. It feels like it's paralyzed. They won't work anymore. So I can use every muscle in my body to try to get it to work. You can't power through it when that happens, and then you feel like your airway is cut off. So there's a natural fear every day something like that will happen. As far as doing trips and things for fun, I have to always just try to be 10 steps ahead. If I'm going anywhere, what is the medical, who's going to bring me out of a crisis if I go into it, if I have a flare up. So,
Lisa, you're not really answering my question, right? And I know you don't want to answer it. I'm asking you, how has this affected you emotionally? How has this affected you mentally?
It's a lot. I mean, it's hard to put into words. It's a lot. I think about it all day long.
You talk to anybody about it?
I try not to.
Why not?
It's hard. If I talk about autoimmune hepatitis, and we've kind of learned about that with all the experts here, you just use the word hepatitis and people automatically assume it's the hepatitis you can get if you cut yourself or something. It's a lot to explain the whole process. So it's just one of those things that I actually try not to talk about because there's just very little understanding, and rightfully so. I didn't understand it until I had it.
Can you admit to us you're afraid?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I have a problem admitting I'm afraid. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I don't know what will happen.
Now, we've heard Dr. Mahajan testify that myasthenia gravis is a progressive disease and it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And he conveyed this to you while he's been treating you.
He has.
How has that affected you emotionally?
It's hard to hear. I mean, for someone to say, I remember one time I had come to him and I had said, I think I'm doing good, Dr. Mahajan. I think this is all behind me. And he had said, let's not get ahead of yourself. This, and he's always trying to break it down. He's like, this is a progressive disease. And, you always have to kind of be careful of what you do and, limit your stress and everything else. And I remember having that conversation with him, and he had the conversation that you just said, giving me the progressive disease discussion. And I thought I was doing good, but then that was October, and November was the time that I ended up in the hospital, just literally 1 month later. And I was like, did I jinx myself? So, he's a great doctor, but he's got his work cut out for him because he's always trying to give me the realization of this disease.
How did you feel, Lisa, when you realized your myasthenia gravis and your autoimmune hepatitis was caused by you drinking real water?
To say that I was angry would be an understatement. I wholeheartedly felt betrayed because I worked for this MMA organization owned by Real Water. They physically provided me real water. And I just felt really lied to. It was deemed the healthiest water out there.
Well, they deemed it, right?
They deemed it the healthiest water out there. And instead, I've got illnesses for the rest of my life.
We've heard you've talked about this so much that you've been able to continue to work despite these debilitating injuries. Can you talk to us about how you're able to do that?
As I had said, my work has made accommodations for me. When it first happened, we thought it was just an isolated incident and I was going to snap back, and they had said, you don't have to travel, we don't care where you work. It could be from your hospital bed, it could be from your regular bed. You can still talk, right? And I said, yeah, I can. And then I started slurring my words. So then we kind of figured out when I slurred. It seemed to be earlier in the morning during one of my terrible times. And they were like, okay, then just do calls later in the day, because I work many different time zones. So I was able to be flexible. So they've been amazing. But of course I have concerns with that. My company sold 3 times in the last 8 years. If they sell again and I get new management, there's no guarantee that they'll make those same accommodations. So, right now I am absolutely just hoping for the best with the accommodations, and that I can continue doing what I'm doing.
Lisa, why is it so important for you to continue working?
I love my job. I've worked really, really hard to get to where I'm at in my company. And I think it's really important that people have purpose in their life. And again, I love what I do. I feel like there's a lot of purpose in the job that I do. I work with home health and hospice and help my teams, and, just not something that I want to give up. I shouldn't have to give up. I'm too young to give up my career.
So can you explain to the jury here why you're not making a loss of earning capacity claim here?
Yes, so your firm actually had suggested that I do make a loss of income, but it's my hope that I can continue working, that I can continue.
Did you tell us no?
I did tell you no. And
Why?
for many different reasons. Again, I don't plan to give up my career. I want to continue as long as I can continue. I feel like I've given up a lot of things as a result of my illnesses. I've given up my ability to do all of the commentating that I like to do as routinely as I like to do it. I've given up my ability to do all the fundraiser activities the way that I want to do them. I've given up my ability to travel around doing motivational speeches, just due to the uncertainty of how I'm feeling. And,
What about your physicality?
well, I spent my whole adult life training to be an elite athlete. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't fighting, but I was still training people. I was teaching at gyms. I was doing a lot of things that I like to do, and I'm not able to do that. I was always in the best shape of my life, and sometimes I can't work out for months on end. So I have given up a lot due to the ailments I now have as a result of real water. So for me to give in really kind of just feels like defeat. And so I will do what I can to push through, to continue having my job and just not give it up, at least as long as I can until, I can't continue or my work can't accommodate me the way that they've been doing. I've given up enough to real water, and at this point, I don't want to give up my career as well.
How do you feel when you think about your future? How do you feel, Lisa?
It's scary. It's very scary. I think my biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. And I absolutely have loved my independence, and I never want to be a burden to my family, and kind of the trajectory that I'm going down, it kind of feels like that's just something I just might have to deal with. Again, I don't like that I have to pre-plan for every aspect of my life in case what if. That's not fun. And so again, I'm angry. And I guess I'm just doing the best that I can with what I have.
Are you trying to put a brave face on it?
Always. I've always tried to put a brave face on, and I don't think that this is any exception, with the exception of me crying up here. But generally, that's how I try to be on a day-to-day.
I think it's clear that you're committed to trying to make the best of the situation. Can you tell us what you attribute that to?
Yes. So I had mentioned that I had started working in oncology early on. And you see a lot of things in oncology. And I remember one time there was a gentleman who came in who was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He was about 60 years old. And there was a female who came in the same day, right around the same age, and she also was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And he automatically accepted it, as some people do. He was just like, this is my demise. They say I'm, going to die. And within 2 weeks, I saw him come back. He had a cane. 2 weeks later, he had a walker. And within 4 months, he had passed away. Whereas the female, her name was Caridad. I got to know her quite well because she actually had a casita available. And so my daughter and I moved in there. She needed help because she was absolutely going to raise her grandkids and be a part of the family. So she would come into the cancer center and she was always dressed to the nines. She was always doing her hair. Then she eventually lost her hair. Then came the wigs, and she's always pleasant. She was happy. She had things to do. She was taking care of her grandbabies, and everybody loved her. And so I would ask her, I'm like, why do you get ready every time you go for a chemo treatment? And she was like, if I look good, I feel good. And I said, really, you feel good getting chemo? And she goes, well, I feel better than I do if I, look like a hot mess. And I could appreciate that. And she had the best outlook. Again, she was very positive. She was told day one her outlook was really grim. And she ended up living for 4 years. I mean, she far exceeded what they gave her. And I absolutely always knew that it was her mindset. It was her very powerful mindset. So I had a lot of respect for her. I looked up to her, and I guess now when I'm kind of in a situation, it's just kind of a persona that I've adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. We're ready to go, Your Honor.
Excuse me. Hi, Ms. King. You okay?
I'm trying to.
Okay. You want to gather your thoughts for a moment?
I'll take some water.
Okay.
We'll keep going.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. King. You've worked at a series of healthcare-related businesses over the course of your employment life. Is that correct?
Yes.
Started with the Nevada Cancer Center, I think you said in 1991, and continues to the present day.
I think it was 95.
Is it 95 you started at Nevada Cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Somewhere around there.
All right, and to the present day?
I still work in healthcare. Yes.
All right, so over the last 30 years, correct?
Yes.
All right. My understanding is you first learned of real water in 2014. Is that accurate?
Yes.
All right. And I'm not familiar with real MMA. I'm assuming that's a much smaller entity than UFC that's well known.
That's correct.
Okay. And you did some ring announcing for real MMA until April of 2019?
Correct.
All right, I tried to summarize how much real water you're drinking during that period of time. So I'll just go through it line by line and see if I get it straight. In summary, you started having access to real water at their Desert Inn facility where they had 1 liter bottles and they would give you a bottle or two.
When I would go to the meetings at Real Water, Real MMA. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, so yes, that would make sense.
Okay. I'm just going by your depot.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
It's my habit.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. The second location was at weigh-ins for real MMA events.
Yes.
And they would have bottles, and you would sometimes consume real water 1 liter bottles at that location.
Yes.
And the third time, there would be a giveaway at actual fights, and you would consume a bottle or two during those fights.
Correct.
And finally, there would be water, sort of commercials or filming, and you could consume them there as well.
Yes.
All right. And you would also consume real water retail bottles that you would purchase at various stores, and we don't need to get into it, but various stores around town. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. All right. You also, I believe, started getting real water in 5-gallon jugs from Real Water. Is that correct?
Yes, that was later. That was like 2018.
2018. All right. So the last time you drank real water in any way, shape, or form was in November of 2019, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's jump to your liver enzymes and your autoimmune hepatitis. Is it my understanding that your enzymes as it relates to your liver are in control since 2020?
I don't have my records in front of me, so I don't remember what the year was. But yes,
Okay.
somewhere around that time.
And I'm only using that date because I think that's what was asked of you in direct examination. So let's just move to 2021. Are your liver enzymes good currently? Here we are in 2025
Yes,
and in 2024
yes,
and 2023,
I believe so.
2022,
I believe so.
2021. Okay. And I can certainly empathize with your health issues. I'm sorry you have those, but at least as it relates to the liver enzymes, that's good news.
That I'm not having to deal with elevated liver enzymes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. You started having neurological issues starting in 2018 to 2019. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And they come and go. They're not there all of the time.
Are you meaning then or now?
Well, I'm talking about now.
No, they're there pretty regularly.
Okay. Was there a period of time when they started in 2018 to 2019 up until now when they would come and go?
I think that they were. I was feeling optimistic, I guess you can say, because I was hoping that I was going to go into a remission of some sort.
Okay. When your deposition, you recall your deposition being taken in this case?
I do.
All right, and that was in 2024.
Correct.
And I remember we're asking conditions like feeling your throat was closing, overall muscle weakness, fatigue in your legs, feeling extremely heavy, and inability to walk. Those are the conditions that you feel occasionally now.
Yeah. So I have muscle weakness pretty regularly. It just differs on the extent of my muscle weakness.
Okay. So this isn't a constant. Using, I believe, the words in your deposition, they come and go. Is that accurate or not?
Yeah, the severity does. Yes.
All right. All right. We'll talk a little bit about your work because it was brought up in direct. Sounds like you've held your job presently from 2019 onward. Is that accurate?
So I've been with the company since 2017.
2017. Okay. And you've been able to do it. It sounds like you're doing pretty well at it. Is that fair?
I am.
Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. And there's no indication that your company, that they're going to let you go for any reason, correct?
So not for performance-based. I guess my concern, everybody's concern in corporate America is, do they get bought out? And is there new management that revamp something?
Right. And you've had a bunch of crazy buyouts, it sounds like.
Crazy would be an
And
understatement.
that's always very stressful.
Yes.
But I'm just talking about no one's giving you any indication with your company they're going to let you go for any reason.
Not
Correct?
that I'm aware of.
All right. And no one at your company has ever told you that you were doing poorly or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
And you're able to fully and completely handle your duties, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, I think you stated at the beginning that you're the top person in your field. Is that correct?
I'm the top person at my company, yes.
All right. And you handle 12 states, is that, or is it 11?
12.
What are the 12 states?
It is Idaho, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. Did I get
That
12?
might be 12.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So you're able to handle that.
Yes.
All right. Have any of your treating physicians ever told you that you're going to need a liver transplant?
No.
Okay. Treating for the IVIG, I wanted to kind of get a feel for that in terms of the timing. Are you a pretty good historian in terms of remembering when you received those treatments?
I'm not sure. It depends on the question, so we'll find out.
All right. Well, I had a hard time, so if you have a hard time, I understand. But I think I've got some notes here.
Okay.
The first time you received an IVIG treatment was when?
June 2019.
All right. So it started in June 2019.
No, 2019, yes.
And then we'll sandwich it in. On the other side, the last time you received it was sometime in February of last month?
Yes.
Okay. February of 2025. All right, I just kind of want to fill this in to make sure that I have an idea of when you received them. So you had one in June of 2019, and I know you had one on over Thanksgiving in 2022. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Did you have any in between there?
Yes.
Okay, and what dates were those, if you can recall?
I don't remember the exact date. I do know the month was August 2019.
Okay, so you had one in July of 19, August of 19, and then the next one would have been 11 of 22?
Correct.
I think she said June of 19, Counselor.
I think that was the first one, and then the second one was August.
Correct.
All right. All right, then the next one was November of 22.
Correct.
All right. And what I have as the next one is February of 23.
Correct. And I had 2 days back to back.
All right. And then March of 23.
Correct.
And then April of 23.
Correct.
And then there was a break until November of 2023. Is that accurate?
Yes.
All right. And then now we're at 11/23 and February of 25. Did you have any in that period of time?
In what year?
I'm sorry. If you had one in November of 23 and you had one in February of 25, did you have any in between?
I did not.
Okay. So that's about 13, 14 months?
Yes.
Okay. And when you had this, first of all, I never want you to think of being disrespectful anyway, but I want to use the right terms.
Sure.
I don't know, it was a relapse or exacerbation? What was the terminology they used?
They use two different words that are kind of
Interchangeable?
interchangeable. One is flare up and the other one is exacerbation.
All right, all right. Now, you had said that you had this flare up and you went into your pain management doctor?
I did.
Okay, but what you were seeing that doctor for doesn't have anything to do with our case, correct?
No, I hadn't seen him in years, but I just thought maybe it was.
Okay, all right. We talked a little bit about PSD, but you've never been diagnosed with anxiety, have you?
No.
All right, and you have been on anxiety medication, correct?
Correct.
Talking about drinking real water, and it's very admirable about how tight you are with your family.
Thank you.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. Your mom looks exactly like you. When I saw that one picture with all the family around him, I thought, why did you take that style picture? Because it looks super,
Yeah.
All right, so that's your mom. All
That's
right.
my mom.
If it's okay if I talk about your son and daughter.
Sure.
I wouldn't, but they've been brought up. Seems like you were basically almost bathing in this real water for years.
I was
So-
not bathing in it, but yes. Thank God.
I understand. Did your daughter Courtney, did she drink real water?
A little bit. She didn't live with me. So I'm sure she's had it, but not in excess.
Did she get sick?
She did not.
Your son Porter, a
Yes.
good-looking young man there, did he drink real water?
He had some. He didn't like the taste of it.
All right. And, well, why did people, I don't understand, I've never had alkaline water. People like the taste of it. You like the taste of it?
I've got issues with my nose because of hobbies. So I wouldn't know if it had something funky about it. I like the benefits that they promoted about it. But
You
my
say-
son didn't like the taste of it. He's a
Okay.
water snob.
So, okay, so it had a smell. All right. So he didn't get sick, correct?
No.
At the time you had real water in your home, you were not with your current partner? Mm-hmm. Is that yes?
When I had real water in the home, I got that in 2018. So he actually did live there.
Oh, okay. I thought you were living with your ex-husband, Ryan Harris, at that time. No?
No, he moved out in 2017.
All right. So did any of your significant others ever get sick from drinking the real water when they were exposed to it?
No.
All right. All right, I'd like to get into a little bit about travel, and to the extent I want to get that straight. I certainly don't expect you to put your life on hold, and it doesn't sound like you have. You've moved forward best that you can. Is that accurate?
Doing the best that I can, yes.
All right. So I want to get a little bit about the travel, make sure I get that straight, because I may have been confused. You started experiencing your health issues in 2018, is that accurate?
Yes,
All right. During that period of time, you were able to travel to San Juan, Puerto Rico,
yes,
and Budapest, Hungary.
yes, that was 2018.
I thought it was in January 2019 you went to Budapest.
I went there actually for New Year's Eve, so there might have been a day or two lapse in January.
And you were able to make it over to Germany as well?
There was that was actually just a layover.
Okay. And I think you indicated you've been able to go to Hawaii. Is
Yes.
that accurate? Have you been to Asia at all?
I've been to Thailand probably back in 2009.
All right, but that's back when you're doing the MMA.
Yes,
Okay. All right. So you have not been to China. That was your significant other. There's some photos there.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry if I made that mistake.
that's okay.
You've been able to travel domestically.
Significantly less than I used to, but yes.
Right. All right. I think you mentioned a trip to Utah
Yes,
that got canceled, I think, over Thanksgiving, but you were able to go there in January 2021.
yes.
All right. Are you able to go to, are you afraid to go out in public because there's a lot of people around and you feel that your immune system is weakened?
During COVID, I did, actually. Dr. Mahajan, my neurologist, had talked to me at the beginning of COVID, and he said, I need you to be very, very careful on what you do and where you go, because if you end up on a ventilator, I can't give you a muscle relaxer because it would weaken your muscles and make you 10 times worse. So he actually told me to avoid people.
Okay. All right. But then after COVID it was over, you're able to start going back out to events in 2023?
I believe so. Yeah, I left. I went places. I just was very conscientious not to be around people who were sick.
Okay. And that makes sense. So I think in your deposition you indicated you're able to go to concerts in 2023.
Yes, I think I went to one concert with my daughter.
Okay. Well, it says here you went to LL Cool J and you went to Shakira in 2023.
I have never seen Shakira, so I think it was LL Cool J and Salt and Pepper. But it was, something she got me for Christmas, and it was
Really?
they performed at the same time. So yeah, that was one concert.
All right. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
All
close.
Getting back to real water, when you open bottles of real water, did you ever experience any odd smells?
I did not.
Any odd taste?
No.
When you receive water out of the 5-gallon real water containers, you didn't notice anything off about them, did you?
I did not.
Nothing about their smell or taste?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about some of the symptoms that you were having. You indicated that at some point in time back in 2019 you were having shaking and tremors. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And those have come and gone as well over the years?
Yes.
All right. You also complained of prolonged and consistent coughing. Have those resolved as well?
Yes.
You stated, and
Wait a minute, she didn't say that the tremors have resolved, she said they come and go. So I would object to the question in Ms. State's prior testimony.
I'll rely upon what her testimony is, Your Honor.
Yeah, I mean, can you rephrase it?
Yeah. Your prolonged and consistent coughs, those have resolved as well back in 2018, correct?
Yes.
In your deposition, you talked something that was identified as vocal cord dysfunction. Is that the same thing as slurring?
No.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the vocal cord dysfunction?
Yes. So when I first felt like my throat was closing, I had my doctor had referred me to an ear, nose, and throat, and they did a scope through my nose into my vocal cords, and they had said that that I had, it's called vocal cord dysfunction or vocal cord paralysis. Again, two terms that mean the same exact thing, and they were saying that they weren't opening and closing correctly.
Okay. And the last time you had that happen, that condition, was sometime in 2020?
I would need my medical records to find the year. I know it started in 2019. I don't recall exactly when it stopped.
Okay. I've got your deposition here. So let me ask you this question. When was the last time you had any slurred speech?
I don't recall the year specifically. I believe I know I had it in 19. I might have had it in 20. I'm not I don't recall if it was in 21. I kind of the years run together.
In your deposition, I'll represent to you.
Sure.
And the question was, and when was the last time you had any slurred speech? And you said, I believe it was in sometime in 2020.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's probably correct.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about people that you saw as related to psychological conditions that you were experiencing. Do you recall meeting with Dr. Sands?
Yes.
Was that remote or in person?
Remote.
Was that something that you wanted to do, or you felt that you had an obligation to do it, to see Dr. Sands?
No, I wanted to do it. I wanted to see what his opinion was.
Right, and did you review his opinions?
I have reviewed his results of his opinions.
Okay, and what do you mean by that?
So kind of like what we saw up on the board where it says, within normal limits, not within normal limits, you got a couple things and you got PTSD. So I guess the impression.
Right, it's like a couple of pages. Is
Yeah.
that what you read?
I just kind of read what the end result is, kind of what we saw here on the screen.
Okay. Oh, so that's all you saw that was on the screen? You didn't look at his actual reports or
I have
findings?
not. There's a lot of my medical records I haven't gone through
Okay.
in detail.
Yeah, so in his report, he had indicated that he did a number of tests. Do you recall what those tests consisted of? Mm-hmm. Could you tell me what those were, please?
There were some, I don't know if they were memory tests or what they were, but you would see shapes and then you had to draw them and kind of go from memory. There was word association, not even word association, do you remember these words type of deal? You kind of got to relay those back. Some questionnaires. That's kind of what I remember at this point.
Okay. And, some of these tests, I think he indicated they were executive functioning and where you were in the limits. I think you pretty much testified how you can work through your condition in terms of your executive functioning at work. You've been able to overcome what you're dealing with.
Okay.
I just find it interesting when they test you on those, and the proof's in the pudding, right?
Yeah, that's not my area of expertise, but for my situation, I'm finding ways to adapt.
Okay. Did you look at any of his findings on a test called an MMPI?
I couldn't tell you which one of those tests was that.
Okay. Is it safe to say if you didn't look at his test specifically, it would be unfair for me to ask you what your opinions were if you hadn't had a chance to look at them?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm not going to do that.
Thank you.
No problem. If I could have the court's indulgence for a moment, Your Honor? Thank you.
I'm sorry we had to meet under these conditions, but it was a pleasure, and thank you, ma'am. I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, you may step down.
Thank you.
First time, Your Honor.
Okay, you ready for a break?
Order to go.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, remember you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else under the subject matter connected with this case, or to read, watch, listen to, and report of, or carry on the trial by any person that might be connected with this matter, or by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio, remember social media. And last but not least, do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with this trial until the cause is finally submitted to you. Let's take a quick time.
All rise to report to the jury. Jury's clear.
Okay, we go up the record.